Hi, I'm Hayden Bennett from Commercial Property Group. I'm with Kymbal Dunne from Broken Arrow Advisory. Kymbal and I wanted to get together and give everyone a bit of a brief around managing the expectations of both landlords and tenants. Kymbal, over to you.
Sure. Thanks very much for that, Hayden. I'm looking forward to doing this. So I thought what we'd do is just to start off with work out whose expectations are what. Because the audience are mainly agents, I thought we'd focus on the agent's expectations first, and then we'll go through into the landlord and the tenant. So
Sounds good.
essentially, what does an agent want out of their transactions each day? They want to control stock, which they don't own, it's other people's. They want to market the property, and they want to introduce interested parties. Secondly, they want to convert that business to transactions and then receive commission. And finally, they'd like to promote that success to the broader market so they could win new clients and repeat the whole thing again.
Yeah, totally.
We do. So that's us, the agents. What does the landlord want? So the landlord wants cash flow, the lifeblood of their investment, realistic rental returns, an understanding of their maintenance obligations, the importance of tenant quality and the tenant's financial stability, and a long-term asset value and the preservation of that, so they're not going to lose money. So they'd be the headline points for the landlord. Quite differently on the tenant side. They want to know that the space is functional and that there are good quality amenities, that they would like lease flexibility and terms. Probably to know that the building owner and the manager are professional, and that the building will be professionally managed. And finally, that their operational costs and outgoings are known or can be reasonably predicted.
So when we talk about the expectations of the landlord, what we're seeing in our market is obviously we deal with a lot of private owners, and Kymbal, I know you deal with a lot of corporate ownership. From our private ownership point of view, like when we look at incentives and what a tenant comes to the landlord with, whereby they're wanting a significant incentive because of a fit out or whether they think it's just market. From a landlord's point of view, how do you reckon we demonstrate or explain to them that incentives are common in the marketplace?
Yeah, it's the opaque part of what is normally a pretty transparent market. And I think that what I've found, particularly with overseas buyers, they've simply said, we love your market. It's so reliable. We can see everything. Your governance is great from a country perspective, but we just don't understand these incentives. Like, what's the story?
Because I imagine from the space that you're in, you're seeing some phenomenal incentives at 40, 50 and even more. Which for where I'm at in the southern suburbs of Sydney, us getting 5 and 10% incentive, which would be on a 5-year deal, 3 months to 6 months rent free. But I'm hearing deals in the corporate end in town at north of 50%. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So we have been in that 30 to 40% for a couple of years.
Wow.
And we're now starting to move beyond that.
Those owners that you're dealing with in the corporate space, they're educated to know that that's what they've got to do in order to lure the right covenant on their building. Is that right?
Correct. They started the problem in the first place by having incentives which were commonplace. Originally, incentives came into being because tenants couldn't afford the cost of the fit out. And so 20% was quite common to be given in exchange for, let's say, a 7-year term. And that 20% on the 7 years meant that you could afford the magnificent fit out that your organisation was going to have to pay for. And you didn't have to go to your head office and ask for capital to go and spend all that money. And so there was a sense to it. But after 20% and moving to 30, 40 and 50%, it got silly. And a lot of those tenants now say, well, I don't need all that money. Why am I getting a discount on a rental that isn't a real rental? And that's the problem is that we've run into, is that we've got a little bit of a fake environment just supporting these valuations, which are not being tested at the market level.
So as I say, I think that's the key there with when you say market valuations. I think from an owner's point of view, it's like they get presented with a deal and they'll look at what the face rent is. And if it's under what they need it to be from a capitalisation point of view, they want to see that face rent lift, and then they'll backdoor it with obviously an incentive, which makes the tenant think, well, on paper, this is the rate that I'm paying, but in real dollars, I'm only paying this. And I think, yeah, in that corporate space, some of the tenants probably understand that, but in the suburb area, I think from where we sit in the coalface is it's facts and figures, and the tenants sometimes don't understand why we want to have a face rent of X and give you incentive on Y. And there's a lot of deals that we do here in our group where incentives aren't offered. And again, it goes step by step with the owner's expectations and what the owner requires. And because we're dealing with a lot of private owners, some of them are reliant on that income. And for us to go to them and say, hey, I got you a new 5-year deal, but the tenant wants 6 months or 12 months rent free, that's a very big pill for a private owner to swallow. So again, just educating that owner and explaining to them the reason why they want this incentive is that they're going to be spending $500,000 on your fit out. They're going to be there for a 5-year term with 2 5-year options. Just trying to educate the owners around why they want this rent free. Because I think from an agent's point of view, they all think that the owner thinks that we've offered that rent free. It's like, well, we haven't offered anything. The objective is to get you the best outcome and the best return, but this is what the market's delivered you, and it's up to you if you want to take it. We can keep looking for a new tenant, but I don't control the vacancy period. You could be vacant for another 6 months, and that rent free that they want, you're going to lose it anyway waiting for a tenant.
So Hayden, one of the things I do now in the role of an advisor is I understand the agent's world really clearly, and I'm thinking about it now from the point of view of either a tenant or an owner. And what I find is that I get all this data, all these transactions that the agents are able to get, but really what I'm interested in is the knowledge. And the knowledge that comes out of that is the agent's interpretation of each one of those deals. And then once I've had an opportunity for expert agents to tell me that deal is more complex than you can see, and this is why, then I can start to make more informed decisions. And I think that's what the good agents are able to do, is they're able to distill that information into what are the deals that are out there that the owner of the property should be thinking about when they have to make a decision on closing their position and then accepting whatever the tenant is offering. Because what you'll find is if you don't do that, tenants will simply just hear that they can get 80% over here or 70% over there. And when I say 70%, I mean 70% of every year of the lease back as a deal, instead of the incentive being up front for maybe 1 year and the rest of them are just normalized rents. So look, the value we play as an agent is huge, but it's just this information can be daunting. And what we're looking for is knowledge. And that really, that expert agent, that long term, or the person that spends so much time looking at this evidence and turning that evidence into information and knowledge, they're the ones that you want to stay with.
Yeah,
big time. Interpret.
Yeah, and I think information's power, and that knowledge of knowing the market is absolutely critical. But I know from where we sit, you've also got to invest the time in understanding what is the client's objective. What are they comfortable to tolerate? Are they looking to just fill up a vacancy to have continued cash flow? Or are they looking to fill up a tenancy to offload the asset? And whilst they might accept that rent, then the question would be, what impact does that rent have on the end value? Like we go through it all the time. I've just appraised a property recently yesterday. We just leased it out on a 3-year term, and the client's looking to divest it. Well, the challenge is that we've rented it, and we've actually rented it for a pretty good rental rate, but looking back at a capitalisation value, I think the owner's going to be stuck with that property for the next 3 years unless he's prepared to meet the market, where the market might want to pay a 5 to 5.5% net return. So again, that understanding the client's requirements, and I know no one's got a crystal ball to know what's going to happen in the future. You know, when we look at why people dispose of assets, I call it the Ds. It's death, divorce, debt, right? Or just divest in general, trying to understand what are their objectives, what do they want to achieve, and as the agent, just being that trusted advisor to give the right advice on what you understand the picture is from the conversations that you've had with the owner, and you've tried to build up that rapport and that trust factor.
I think if we wanted to do a wrap on this, there is no better party than the agent to be able to manage the expectations of the tenant and the landlord.
Mm-hmm.
They understand the market. They are in many ways creating the market, and they can turn that raw data into knowledge. And if they can communicate that information well, they will win the respect of both the tenant and the owner. They will sit in the middle of the transaction, and they will be successful. They'll convert the transaction. They will earn their commission, and they will go on and build a great reputation and do a lot more business.
And then they'll repeat and do it all again.
Exactly.
That's the objective. Well done. Thanks for your time, Kymbal. That was great.
Hayden, great to talk to you, and I love sharing the information about the industrial market too.
Yeah, ditto, mate. Thank you, Kymbal.